Welcome back. We're talking about the effect the recession is having on small, medium enterprises and how to try and counter that. Graham McGregor is the CEO of Bold Context. He is our guest in the studio this evening. Graham, let's go back to this whole issue of suppliers, because I think what a lot of people forget is if you're running your own business, you're running harder to sell your product. Your suppliers are probably in exactly the same position, because if you're not selling your product, they're not getting your business. How amenable in times like this are suppliers to changing terms and conditions and pricing and structures and all the rest of it?
Jeremy, they're very amenable. They want to have that discussion. Just like you are focused on retaining your customers and making sure that you're servicing them and improving the quality, because customer retention is key. It's the same for them. So I think one of the key things is to start viewing your suppliers as business partners. They're your partner whether you like it or not, and having the right suppliers supporting you is critical. I think the thing that frustrates suppliers, and it's the same when you're a supplier to another party, is when there's no communication, when there's no word of any request, and all of a sudden there's a panicked approach. That's a difficult thing for a supplier to manage.
I see where you're coming from, but to me, it seems in a lot of areas, and I'm just trying to think generally across pricing these days in retail, which is where we as normal public members come face to face with pricing. To me, all that seems to be happening is there are increases in prices, but they're not as hectic. So in other words, the squeeze must be downwards. How much squeeze can be exerted downwards until people start turning around and saying, I cannot do it at any less of a price and under any other terms and conditions, because otherwise it's not profitable for me. There's got to be a tipping point here somewhere.
Agreed, and I don't think there's a lot more space on the downside, really. I think where people have also pushed suppliers historically is on payment terms. So requesting, instead of the 30-day account, the 60-day account. And I think suppliers, because of cash being frozen in the system, the bank facilities aren't there, that they aren't what they used to be. That also means that avenue has been exhausted. I think where suppliers can assist is around items that don't cost them a direct output cost. So in service, in meeting with customers with you, in delivery of internal costs or internal services that they provide. I think that's an area where people don't take advantage of enough.
Okay, just explain that a bit more depth to me.
So if you're supplying a product and you've got material components in it, what differentiates your product against someone else's? Often it's the quality of materials and maybe the methodology with which you build the product or service. If you're seeing a new customer, what about involving the supplier who supplies you with the materials in that process? And I think suppliers are often willing to do that too. So it's presenting a unified front almost to close larger deals. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So once again, it comes back to this business partnership that you were discussing earlier, and bringing your suppliers into your business. Is that not, and I'm just taking the paranoid approach now, is that not a dangerous thing to do, to let your suppliers get too close to your business?
It can be. It depends on what your industry is. It depends whether you've got enough differentiation in your service or product offering. And it depends what they do. Some businesses do, when the times get tough, try to jump the intermediary and go straight to the customer. So if you've got a risk of that, then it might not be something you'll consider. But in a service industry, as an example, one of the things you'll consider is that if you use consultants, you would actually negotiate with them. Instead of it being an upfront fee, you'll structure an annuity fee. You'll give them slightly more of the kind of pie, but you'll make sure that they spread their costs over 12 months. Now you've just freed up a significant amount of cash flow.
There was I think it was somebody in the IT field who had a problem with a software application that he was trying to put together. And he decided, because there's this whole thing about intellectual capital doing the rounds now, and he decided, no, you know what? I need to solve this problem. He went on the internet and he said, I have this problem with my software. How can I resolve it? And he had thousands of suggestions as to how he could resolve it. And he did resolve it at no cost to himself whatsoever. How big, in times like this, how should people be starting to reposition their problems and problem solving in more of a social network area? Because it is becoming a much bigger part of business.
It's a massive community. I mean, LinkedIn, as an example, has something like 150 million members who are predominantly professionals, all looking for solutions, all networking, and all linked to help each other. So I think it's a very good point, that. And I think it's something that all small businesses should be participating in.
What should they be doing?
They should be making sure that they use the tools and are aware of all the tools. So if there's a link, let's use LinkedIn as an example.
Okay.
Set up a personal profile, make sure it's got enough detail so that people can actually get a feel for who you are, and then set up a company profile that's linked to it. Make sure that your company profile has enough detail about the service offerings, the products that you sell, etc., and then start to market internally. Create a group. Talk about what your latest product review has been. Talk about challenges in the industry. Talk about supply chain issues. There you'll find that there are more than one set of companies that are actually interested in it. So I think that's a good point.
It's an issue that has come up before on this show, where we've brought up the fact that, in this case, for example, let's say Mansfield Inc. And Mansfield here is now fast approaching 50. I am not an IT whiz kid who knows about social networks and all these sort of things.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a technological moron.
Okay.
How do you break through that barrier? Because I see it, and I think a lot of people my age would probably see it as a barrier.
Well, I think there are companies that can assist you for a relatively low cost in setting it up. But I think the other thing is actually just to start the process. And normally there's someone in your family, whether it's kids, grandkids, nephews, that you could actually kind of bring in who know that space and who grew up with that space. So to get you the initial introduction and walk you through it, maybe it's best to start within the family sphere.
There was one of the problems I remember coming up on the show where we were talking about IT problems, was that it is a hassle for people, and I would imagine it would be the same in the small medium enterprise as well, where the owner is my sort of age, is not IT savvy,
Okay.
and brings in somebody who is IT savvy. And I'm not saying that all IT people are crooked, but there have been numerous cases where those people have siphoned money off without the owner knowing, because they know how to do it, and he's not aware of the once again the processes and all the rest of it.
I think you've hit on a very important point. What happens with small businesses typically is that and medium-sized businesses, is they grow through the curve and then suddenly need a specialist. But no one in the business has any skill or experience at managing that type of specialist.
Yeah.
So the ability for that specialist to have free reign, and especially in the IT component where they can get into your servers, they can see payroll information, etc., because they've got that kind of advanced user access. It's very high. It's prevalent. So I think in that space, I would rather consider outsourcing to a professional outfit who you can manage through an SLA, who have to have certain public liability insurance, and you can hold them accountable. So, and nowadays, those guys are offering services at really good prices.
We've only got about 3 or 4 minutes left. What are the bits of advice that you would say to somebody sitting now who owns a small medium enterprise, and they are faced with this ongoing recession that nothing's doing that really?
No. I would make sure I understood what my key products are, right, and where my key customers on the 80-20 rule. I would make sure that I am looking at new avenues to find new markets. I would speak to my employees. I would start using internal networking too. I would incentivize my employees to give introductions to other customers, because a personal referral is worth more than a cold call. I would then look at my non-core costs and actually start to reduce them dramatically and prepare for the kind of hunkering down approach.
When you say you would look at developing new things, is now the right time to be looking at that, to be honest?
No, when I'm saying developing, I'm developing new markets
Okay.
with my existing product lines. No.
So pull back on your pull back on your product development at this stage.
Yes.
And just go for the core.
Yes. If there is research and development that you still need to position for the future, I would defer majority parts of it, but I would still keep it going. I wouldn't stop any key R&D components of my existing products.
Graham, how, in your opinion, and we're not going to hold you to it in any way, how long do you reckon we need to hunker down for here?
I would say 2 years minimum.
That's a long time. And that's going to be a hard time.
Well, Europe's our major trading partner. What the chaos in Europe is not a quick fix solution, and that feeds into every aspect of our economy. So I don't see it as a quick turnaround. I don't see banks starting to release more money into the economy very soon.
What are the signs we need to see to know that we're starting to move again?
Sure. I would say when we see inflation coming back down to the 3% level, I think we'll start to see some money getting released. At the moment, the banking sector, access to capital, when capital becomes more freely available, I think that will also be an indicator. I think the other side is just we are reliant on the foreign markets to a large degree. So when we can see some kind of stability coming there and a lack of less bad news entering the market, I think that'll also be an indicator that things are starting to turn, albeit slowly.
But are we not, and now we're getting into the sphere of journalism, are we not though hearing the bad news because that's all that's being reported?
I think to a certain degree it is. It's a popular topic at the moment.
Yeah.
But the scale of it was enormous. The fact that we made it through the last, 4 years or 3 years from 2008 is in itself incredible. What the governments internationally had to do to save it was unheard of. And no one's let anything go bang. So where do you turn it? And I think for me that's the question that I still struggle with. And I don't know enough about the topic, but normally something has to go to restart the process.
Well, hopefully it's not your own business.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for taking time out to join us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.